Hey everyone, welcome back to the Pluck and Chuck Guitar Series, and we are going into the details in the fabric lesson. This is Jason Mraz's song. It's a fantastic song. I love this song to death. So excited about it. Reminder, there's a lesson navigator in the description box below that will have timestamps for this video to get you to the parts of the lesson that you need the most. And it'll have you links to the tabs and to my extra lesson notes on my website. It's all free stuff. Please use it. It's there to help you. No tricks, no scams. It's just helpful stuff. So use it to your heart's desire. And yeah, let's get into the lesson a bit. This is a really great song. For like Jason Mraz fans, this is like the greatest song to learn because the pattern that he uses throughout this entire song, he uses it all over the place. I call this the Jason Mraz pattern because it's just, he uses it in Sleeping to Dream. He throws it in a little bit at the end of his live versions of Life is Wonderful. I've heard him just kind of scatter this through so many of his songs. Sometimes he'll just like break into this pattern, just in random places just to get a certain feel, and it's a really handy pattern to learn. And it technically, in terms of the guitar series, it is really going in a new direction. We just finished doing a bunch of quarter note grooves. We've been doing all the plucking and the chucking techniques. Things have been very integrated up to this point. We are going to change the thumb pattern. Thumb pattern is going to get faster. Up to now we've been doing quarter notes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. Now we're going into an eighth note groove. This is the first eighth note groove we're doing. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and because of that faster thumb pattern that we're drawing out of, things are going to get more intricate. The pattern in this song is a very short pattern. It's really only 1 bar long. It's literally just 12 strokes, but it's a very intricate 12 strokes. You have to subdivide down to a pretty deep level to really get everything in the right place. And so in that sense, it's a short pattern, but it's tricky. So this is really going to test your focus and going to help you build your ability to learn new things. This is a really good challenging piece. It's not too hard, and it's not too easy. This is a really good song for learning pluck and chuck patterns. So I think without further ado, I'll show you, how this all goes. I'll do the fretting stuff, we'll do the picking stuff, we'll put it together, it'll be jolly, we'll eat sundaes and ice cream, everyone will be happy. So the first thing you need to know is that we have the capo on the 6th fret. For girls who are singing this song, you could maybe take the capo off or play it on the 1st fret, but the fingering would be all the same. But for most guys with kind of normal male voices, 6th fret is where we want the capo. So most of the chords in the song are pretty conventional chords, but the first 2 chords that are in the main verse section, they're a little strange. I'm still not sure what to call this chord. I think the shortest name I came up with for it is A minor 7 with a flat 6 in it. But the important thing you need to know is that you have the ring finger on the 3rd fret up from the capo of the D string and the pointer finger on the 1st fret of the B string. Everything is going to be brought up from the capo. I'm not going to talk about the actual key of the song. I'm just going to use the position shape terminology that people know. So this will kind of leave this, your G string is going to be open, your E string is going to be open, and you're playing the A string. You're not playing the thick E string. So just brush that chord, get the pretty sound out of it. Pretty chord. And then the next chord is very close to this one. The shape is very easy to get to from here. You can use your middle finger and bring it down here to the 2nd fret of the A string. Use your pinky on the 3rd fret of the B string. So the ring finger stayed right where it was. This is kind of a G7 13 with a B in the bass. It's kind of a funny chord, but the important thing is 2nd fret of the A string, 3rd fret of the D string, 3rd fret of the B string. And you'll see the shift between these chords is very simple. If you leave your fingers hovering over the frets they need to be on, then you won't have to move very much, which is really what you want. You want it to be a nice, smooth, economical motion. And so that is the set of chords that you're going to use on the verse, and for the bridge and the chorus, there's a different thing. You're going to start out with a C, just a regular old C chord. Switcheroo there to this G with the B in the bass, and that is going to be the 2nd fret of the A string, 3rd fret of the B string, and then to an A minor 7 chord. And it's an A minor 7 with 2 G's in it, so you're using your pinky on the 3rd fret of the thin E string, and there's nothing on the G string. It's an open G string, so you have a G there and a G there. So again, I'll kind of hum the words as they go. Hold your own with the C, G would be the bass. Know your name and go your own way. It's the first little moment. And then you repeat that again. Hold your C, know your G with the B and the bass, and go your A minor 7. And as you go on, you go to this C with the G in the bass. You use your ring finger to keep the shape you had before and play the 3rd fret of the thick E string. And it changes it to a C with a G in the bass. And then you play an F bar chord. If you haven't had that before, your bar is on the 1st fret, and you have ring finger 3rd fret of the A string, pinky 3rd fret of the D string, middle finger 2nd fret of the G string. Regular old F bar chord. And then the final chord is any kind of standard voicing of G. The voicing you use is not so important. I'm using fingering that has 3rd fret of the E and the B string, and the pointer finger on the A string, middle finger 3rd fret of the E string. So to go through that second part of the walk down again, you had go your own way, and everything will be fine. So I'll walk through that whole progression, sing the chord words. Hold your C, know your G with the B and the bass, and go your A minor 7, and the C with the G and the bass to F. Every G will be F, every G. And then usually at the end of this progression, they'll go back and forth between the F and the G some number of times. It varies at different parts of the song, but the key at the end is just F, G, F, G. And I'll clarify that in the section where we put the whole hand together. But those two progressions, this thing where you switch between these two chords, and then we have this kind of constant walking down motion, those are the only two sections of the song that there are for the fretting hand. So once you've got those down, you're ready to go on to the picking material. So, to help us out to learn the picking pattern, we are going to get our handy-dandy hands out again. And the reason we're doing this is because this song is very, very syncopated in 16th notes, and being able to count them can help some people learn how to do this. If you want to skip this section, go ahead. I'm going to recommend that if you have trouble with the picking pattern, try learning the 16th note counting so that you can really get everything in the right place. And the main thing we got to be able to do is subdivide a bar of 4/4 into 16th notes. And the way that goes is you're counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you break all those up into 16th notes. So it's 4 counts for every one of these fingers. And you do that like this. 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a. So you say the number, and then you say E and a. 1E and a, 2E and a, 3E and a, 4E and a. And you just do that again and again and again and again and again and again and again until the end of time. And the key that this is going to help you with is it's going to help you say where something is. If I say something is on the end of 4, there's only one place that could be in this whole cycle. If I say, this particular stroke happens on the end where you have 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and, you know that it's right at the end of the bar if I say it's on the end of 4. And you know specifically if I'm counting 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and, that's when that stroke happens. So that's why it's helpful to know this. So I'm just going to do a quick 4-bar cycle of counting that. You can use your fingers along with me if you just want to practice running this, so that when you go to doing the actual hand practice, you're a little used to counting and it feels a little bit like second nature. A lot of people will probably find this useful. So here we go. I'll count in. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E. And you can do that as many times as you need to feel like you can do it smoothly. And the smoother it is, the easier it will be when you start to do the picking stuff to find where you are and to make sure all the strokes are coming in the right order. So I hope some of you find this helpful, and bye-bye. So now we're down to the meat and potatoes of this lesson. We are doing the picking hand. And I'm going to demonstrate the pattern real quick. I'm going to be holding that A minor 7 flat 6 chord in my left hand. And here we go. I'll demonstrate the pattern real quick. And you'll see the pattern is really just 1 bar long. That's all there is. And then you just do that again and again over different chords. Etc., etc. So in that sense, this fragment is not too long, but getting everything to fall on the right beat and all the fingers to go in the right order, that can be a little bit tricky. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to explain this in a couple of parts. I'm going to explain what the thumb thread is doing. I'm going to explain what the finger thread is doing. And then I'm going to put them together at the end. If you feel pretty confident that you are ready to just learn this as fast as possible, you could kind of skip to the section where I put it together at the end. But if you really want to understand it musically, and also if you want to hear this a little better, you might want to go through this the slow way, because it's one thing that's really nice about this is that you feel like there's a bass line going on and finger things kind of going on over it. And so to really hear those working together is really part of the magic of this pattern. So without further ado, I'll explain these different threads, as I call them. And so the first thing is the thumb thread. It's coming out of an 8th note groove, and the shell for an 8th note groove, if we have things on every pulse, we have 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. And with this pattern, we take a little bit out of it. There's a thumb stroke on 1, there's the normal thumb slaps, but a lot of the thumb strokes are just on the ands. It looks kind of like this. 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. So you'll see there's a thumb stroke on the 1, and then there's a thumb stroke on the and of 2, 3, and 4. So 2 and gets a thumb stroke, 3 and gets a thumb stroke, and 4 and gets a thumb stroke. And then there's just the normal thumb slap. So if we do that really slowly, try to play along with me if you can. Use your ears, count along, try to put it all together and play along with me. 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 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 3 and 4 and 1. So that is the thumb pattern, and that's really what grounds this groove. That pattern, even though it's kind of syncopated, you know, with all those strokes on the ands, it still kind of grounds the upper thread, which, if you can believe it, is even more syncopated than that. So I'm going to have one thumb stroke at the beginning of this, but I'm going to show you mostly what the fingers do. I'm going to hold a regular old C major chord, and the finger thread looks like this. You see how that's got some more funky things going on. For this part, you really need to subdivide down to 16ths. If you think of this as being the main part, you could think of this as being a 16th note groove. I usually don't, but it really, the fingers are definitely doing some complex syncopations here. So let me just build this up in little pieces. What I'll start out with is the thumb, the pointer finger, and the chuck strum. And I usually will do chuck strums with my pointer finger only, because the one thing you want to avoid at all costs is chucking the thin E string, because that kind of ruins the sound of it. Because then when you do this, when you do that extra pluck in there and you pluck the thin E string, if you've already just plucked it, it just feels like you're plucking it again. It sounds kind of repetitive. So I usually use the pointer finger to do my chuck, and I try to only chuck up to the B string. Try to avoid that. So the first few strokes should be 1 and 2, 1 and 2, and you're doing the thumb on the A string. The pointer finger, you can either pluck the G string or the D string. Usually I'll pluck this D string on the first kind of part of the pattern, and then I'll pluck the G string every other time with the pointer finger. But this, for your first coming up, thumb on the A string, pointer finger on the D string, and then chuck strum. 1 and 2. 1 and 2. Try playing along with me. 1 and 2. 1 and 2. 1 and 2. 1 and 2. So once you got that down, then there's going to be a ring finger pluck. It's going to happen on the thin E string, and it's going to happen on the of 2. 1 E and a 2 E and 1 E and a 2 E and So if you put that in really slowly with the first 3 strokes, 1 E and a 2 E and 1 E and a 2 E and watch that thumb pluck there. 1 E and a 2 E and 1 E and a 2 E and So getting that to land right on the of 2 is a little tricky, but really worth getting to. So work that out if you can, and then you're going to see there's going to be a bunch of finger plucks after that, and they're all going to go on the E and the of 3 and 4. So every E and every of 3 and 4 are going to have finger plucks on them. I'll show you what I'm talking about so it doesn't sound just like counting jargon. All those little finger plucks have on 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and Every time one of those finger plucks happened, it was on the E and the of 4. So let's just add the strokes that are in 3. And let's see if we can just get through that much. I'm going to count you in really, really slowly, and we're going to go into this. We're just going to do this. The ring finger is going to pluck on the of 2. The middle finger is going to pluck after that, and then the pointer finger. So you're just kind of going, and that's going to be the of 2, the E of 3, and the of 3. So really slowly, 3 and a 4 E and 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and So if you've got those syncopations rightly in place, right after those strokes you're going to have the chuck strum that happens on 4, and then the E and the of 4 are going to be the B and the G strings. So it'd be 4 basically goes like chuck, pluck, pluck. 4 E and 4 E and 4 E and So when you get that little part down, try to put it in with the rest of the pattern. We're going to do the whole finger thread really, really slowly. 3 E and 4 E and 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and 1 E, 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and 1 E and 2 E, 3 E and 4 E and 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and So see if you can do all that and remember generally where the strokes go. Just remember this kind of arpeggio picking. The main thing you got to think about is it's the ring finger, the middle finger, the pointer, and then the middle and the pointer again. And those are all on the and the E of, there's the one on the of 2, and then the E and the of 3 and 4 all have these little picking strokes on it. And that'll help you remember where to put those strokes later when you put all the rest of the thumb strokes back in. So, speaking of which, now's the time to try to put the thumb and the finger threads together. So I'm going to start building the whole groove. I'm just gonna integrate straight out as if it was just one stroke after another. But if you can remember from doing the individual thread studies where the different strokes happen, then this will be easier because you'll be less likely to get confused as to where things are going, and you'll be less likely to put a stroke in the wrong place. So again, I'm going to be holding a C chord for this, and I'm just going to build it in pieces. First three strokes are still the thumb, the pointer finger on the D string, and then chuck strum with the pointer finger. And remember, we're not trying to chuck the thin E string. We're only going to go up to the B string. You can hit lower strings too, but you don't want to hit that pointer finger. So on the thin E string. So 1 and 2, and 1 and 2, 1 and 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2, 3, 4. Now on 2. Remember, there's a thumb stroke again on the and of 2, and then the ring finger is plucking the thin E string on the of 2. So you have to go 1 and 2 and 1 E and a 2 E and 1 E and a 2 E and So let's count along and just play that much 4 times. 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4. 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4. Cool. So now we're going to go into 3. And if you remember from the earlier thread section, 3 has got the middle finger on E and the pointer finger playing on the B string and the G string. And then there's a thumb stroke on and again. So all the thumb strokes are on ands. It's going to kind of go between these. So you basically have middle thumb pointer on those 3 parts of 3. So if I put that together with the first pattern, it looks like this. 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and So see if you can get that coordination down, and then we're going to add beat 4 at the end. And beat 4 has got a stroke on every single one of the counts. It's got the chuck strum on 4. On the E, it's got, you're again plucking the B string. On and, you're doing the thumb stroke, and on you're doing the pointer finger. So the whole 4 looks like chuck, ring, thumb, pointer. Chuck, ring, thumb, pointer. Chuck, ring, thumb, pointer. Chuck, ring, thumb, pointer. So take a second, just get those 4 strokes kind of looped into your brain, and when you've really kind of got that as a little compact unit, these are the strokes that happen on 4. Thumb. I guess it'd be chuck, ring. When you can do that little pattern, get ready to kind of tack it on to what you did before. You got to make sure that what you did before, you've really got it memorized. And this is a part you might have to go back and do some of the things you did again, because it's like this is the critical moment. We're about to put the whole pattern together, and if the earlier parts, if you haven't really got them in your memory, you're probably going to crash. So now's the time to really go over everything and make sure you got that little packet of what happens on 4 down, and then we're going to try to put the whole pattern together. So if I'm counting in very slowly, 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a... So one more time, I'm going to do the pattern once. 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a... And once you can do that kind of all by itself, you want to try to loop it. So I'm going to count in, and we're going to loop it 4 times. 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E, a 3 E and a 4 E once you've got that pattern down, that quite tricky pattern, you are ready to put the hands together. And I gotta say, this is not going to be the most difficult part of learning the song, because there's not a lot of tricks to putting the pattern with the chords. If you learned the pattern the way I taught it in the section, most of the time you're going to find your thumb is on the A string and your pointer, middle, and ring finger on these three thinnest strings, the E, the B, and the G. And the only trick is usually right when you start a pattern. You don't have to, but oftentimes I'll use the pointer finger on the D string for the first stroke, right before the chuck strum, because especially with this first chord, this F is a very important note. It's a very colorful note, and if your fingers are planted on these thin three strings, you're not going to get it until you hit it with the chuck strum, and then sometimes it doesn't come across it clearly. So what I'll usually do is I'll do the thumb, the pointer finger on the D string, do the chuck strum, and then once this ring finger plucks the thin E string, these three fingers are planted up here. And I'll usually do that just over these first two chords. The pointer finger's just on that first stroke, is on the D string. And that will get the most out of the color of these particular voicings. But when you get to the chorus, you know, you're really just playing over the C chord, and you can keep these three fingers planted on the three thinnest strings. Yes, indeed. And the thumb is just mostly following wherever the bass line is going. So here we have the C chord. So through this whole section, thumb is still on the A string. It's not going anywhere. The fingers aren't really going anywhere. Here the thumb has to go down to the thick E string because it's got to play this new bass note down here. But these three fingers, they stay up here on the thin strings. And then when you get to... It's the same thing for the F chord and for the G chord. The one trick that happens is one transition that is sometimes a little bit unusual. After you're coming out of sort of the first chorus, you're going, and everything will be fine. So usually I'll be in whatever G voicing I'm doing, but the thumb is going to go thick E string twice, and then it's going to pluck the open D string and then back down to the E string. So it's like E, E, D, E, and then brushes the whole chord. So I'll show you that one more time. It's on the E string twice, the D string, then back down to the E string, brushes the whole thing. Again, in context, and everything will be fine. Other than that, most phrases in the song that stop the pattern will end just with a thumb stroke on whatever the first note of the chord would be. So if you're coming out of, if it's a broken arm, then brace it. If it's a broken heart, then face it. All I did was play one thumb stroke. You know, it'd be the same thumb stroke I would have started the pattern on this chord with. I just stopped the pattern before it happens. And that will get you through pretty much all the transitions. There's no real fancy variations that he does to this. There's no funky improvisations. The pattern is very straight on this song. Really, it's more the vocals that tend to get more interesting as you watch the live performances that Jason does. So if you can really get this whole pattern down and really integrate it over all these chords, you're going to find that this pattern is an excellent resource for all kinds of songs that you're going to do. I find myself using it for all kinds of other things. I'll just throw it in random places in songs where I think it'll sound nice. I've written other patterns based on some of the fingerings that I got used to with it. Just spend a lot of time working with it, speed it up, and then, you know, when you're really brave, start trying to sing along with it. And if you need some help with that, I highly recommend Justin Sanderco's 10 Steps to How to Sing and Play Guitar at the Same Time. that would really, really help you with this. Very worthy video to try. Calm down, deep breaths, get yourself dressed instead of running around and pulling on your threads and breaking yourself up. If it's a broken part, replace it. If it's a broken arm, then brace it. If it's a broken heart, then face it and hold your own. Know your name and go your own way. Hold your own. Know your name, go your own way, and everything will be fine. Hang on, help is on the way. Stay strong, I'm doing everything, and hold your own. Know your name, go your own way. Hold your own, know your name, go your own way, and everything will be fine. Everything are the details and the fabric, are the things that make you panic, are your thoughts results of static cling, are the things that make you blow. Hell, no reason, go on and scream. If you're shocked, it's just the fault of faulty manufacturing. Everything will be fine. Everything in no time at all. Everything. So hold your own. Know your name. Go your own way. Hold your own. Know your name. Go your own way. And all the details in the fabric are the things that make you panic, are your thoughts results of static cling, are your things that make you blow. Hell, no reason, go on and scream. If you're shocked, it's just the fault of faulty manufacturing. Every